I was celebrating New Year's Eve at my friend's apartment in Redmond. Nothing fancy, just a small group of us. Music playing, people drinking, the usual countdown to midnight kind of thing. I didn't know the guy who showed up around 11. Someone's friend, someone's cousin, I don't remember. He seemed fine at first, quiet, kept to himself mostly, had a few drinks. I remember thinking he looked tired, like he hadn't slept in a while. His name was Adrian. I only learned that later. The party was winding down after midnight. People were leaving, calling Ubers, making plans to meet up for breakfast somewhere. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, looking at all the Happy New Year messages. The usual stuff. Adrian was still there, standing by the window, just staring out at the street. I thought maybe he was waiting for a ride. Or maybe he was just drunk and zoning out. People do that at parties. Then he started pacing, back and forth across the living room. My friend asked if he was okay, if he needed anything. Adrian didn't answer, just kept pacing. His jaw was clenched, his hands were opening and closing, like he was working something out in his head. Someone turned the music down. The apartment got quieter. You could hear the people outside on the street. Fireworks going off in the distance, car horns, the sound of the city celebrating. Adrian stopped pacing. He was standing in the middle of the room, looking at all of us, not saying anything, just looking. My friend asked him again if he was okay, if he needed to sit down, if he needed some water. Adrian said he was fine, but his voice didn't sound fine. It sounded flat, empty, like he was reading from a script. Then he pulled out a knife. I don't know where it came from. I didn't see him carrying anything when he arrived. Maybe it was in his jacket, maybe it was in his pocket the whole time, but suddenly it was just there, in his hand, the blade catching the light from the lamp. Nobody moved. Nobody said anything. We all just sat there, staring, like our brains couldn't process what we were seeing. Like if we didn't react, maybe it wasn't really happening. My friend stood up slowly. He held up his hands. He said something. I don't remember what. Something calm. Something about putting the knife down, about talking, about whatever was wrong, we could fix it. Adrian didn't respond. He just stood there, holding the knife. His face was blank. No anger, no fear, nothing. Just blank. Someone near the door started to move, started to back toward the exit. Adrian's head turned, fast. He looked at them. And that's when I saw it. That's when I knew this wasn't just someone having a bad night. This wasn't just someone who'd had too much to drink. There was something wrong with his eyes. They were open, but they looked empty, like he was looking through us instead of at us. He moved toward the person at the door, not running, just walking. Steady, purposeful. The person tried to get the door open, but their hands were shaking. They couldn't get the lock turned. Adrian reached them before they could get out. What happened next happened fast. Too fast for anyone to stop it. Too fast for anyone to do anything. He stabbed them, once, twice, 3 times. The person fell. Adrian stood over them, still holding the knife. Someone screamed. Someone else ran for the bedroom. Someone grabbed their phone. I just sat there, frozen, watching. My friend tried to tackle Adrian, tried to get the knife away from him. They struggled, knocked over a lamp, knocked over a chair. Adrian was stronger than he looked, or maybe it was the adrenaline, or maybe it was something else, something I don't want to think about. The knife went into my friend's chest, just once, but it was enough. He fell. Adrian stepped back. He looked at the knife. Then he looked at us, at me, at the other people still in the room, and I swear to God there was still nothing in his eyes. No recognition, no remorse, nothing. I don't know who called the police. I don't know how long it took them to arrive. Everything after that is fragmented. Pieces, images, the sound of sirens. The flashing lights. Officers coming through the door with their guns drawn. Adrian dropping the knife. Adrian getting handcuffed. Adrian being led away. He didn't resist, didn't fight, didn't say anything. Just went with them like he was going to the store, like nothing had happened. The paramedics came. They worked on my friend. They worked on the other person, but I could tell from their faces, from the way they moved, from the way they talked to each other. I could tell it was already over. 2 people dead in the first minutes of the new year, in an apartment in Redmond, at a party that was supposed to be fun. That was supposed to be a celebration. The police asked me questions, asked all of us questions. What happened? What did we see? Did we know Adrian? Did anyone know why he did it? None of us had answers. None of us understood. Adrian didn't explain. Not that night. Not later during the investigation. He just said he didn't remember. He said everything was a blur. He said he didn't know why he did it. The toxicology reports came back. He was drunk, but not that drunk. Not drunk enough to explain what happened. Not drunk enough to explain the blank look in his eyes, the emptiness. His family said he'd been having problems, mental health problems. They said he'd been acting strange for weeks. They said they were worried about him. But they didn't think he was dangerous. They didn't think he'd hurt anyone. They were wrong. The trial took months. I had to testify, had to sit in that courtroom and relive it, had to look at Adrian sitting there in his suit, looking normal, looking like just another person. Not like someone who'd stabbed 2 people to death at a New Year's party. His lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity. Tried to say he wasn't in his right mind. That he was having some kind of episode. That he wasn't responsible for his actions. The jury didn't buy it. Neither did I. He got life without parole, 2 counts of first-degree murder. The judge said he was a danger to society, that he couldn't be trusted, that he'd shown no remorse. Adrian didn't react when they read the sentence. Just sat there. Same blank expression, same empty eyes. I don't go to parties anymore. Not on New Year's Eve. Not on any holiday. I stay home, lock my doors, keep to myself, because I can't stop thinking about it, about how he looked, about how there was no warning, no sign. Just a guy standing by the window one minute, a killer the next. I think about the person who tried to get to the door, about my friend who tried to stop him, about how they both died thinking it was going to be a good year, thinking they had their whole lives ahead of them. I think about how fast it happened, how random, how meaningless. I think about Adrian, about what was going through his head, if anything was going through his head, if there was a reason, a trigger, a moment where he decided to do it, or if it was something else, something chemical, something broken in his brain that just snapped. I think about his eyes, about the emptiness, about how he looked at me, right at me, and I wasn't sure he even saw me. Wasn't sure he saw any of us as people, as real. The media called it Washington State's first homicide of 2017, like it was a statistic, like it was just a number, like it wasn't 2 people, 2 lives, 2 families destroyed. My friend's family had his funeral a week later. I went, I stood in the back. I couldn't go up to the casket, couldn't look, couldn't say goodbye. His mom hugged me after. She said it wasn't my fault, that there was nothing I could have done, that it happened so fast that nobody could have known. But I keep thinking maybe I could have. Maybe if I'd noticed something. Maybe if I'd said something when he was pacing, when he was standing by the window looking strange. Maybe if I'd asked him to leave, to go home, to sleep it off, maybe they'd still be alive. The apartment building changed management after, put in new security, new locks, new cameras. Like that would have stopped it. Like that would have made a difference. I moved out of Redmond 2 months later. Couldn't stay. Couldn't drive past that building. Couldn't be in that city without thinking about it, without seeing it. I live in Tacoma now. Different city, different life, different people. But it doesn't matter because I still see it every time I close my eyes. Every time someone at work mentions New Year's. Every time I hear fireworks. I see Adrian standing in that living room, knife in his hand, empty eyes, and I wonder what he saw when he looked at us, when he killed them, when he stood there covered in their blood. I wonder if he saw anything at all. They say he's in prison, that he'll never get out, that he's not a threat anymore. But I don't believe that, because the threat wasn't just him. The threat was the randomness of it, the way someone can just snap, just break, just become something else. The threat is that it could happen again, anywhere, anytime, to anyone. New Year's Eve 2016 turned into New Year's Day 2017 with 2 murders, with blood on a carpet, with screams and sirens and bodies. And I was there, I saw it, I survived it, but I don't feel lucky. I just feel like I'm waiting, like any party could be the next one, like any stranger could be the next Adrian, like any moment of celebration could turn into something else. Something dark, something that doesn't make sense. People say I should move on, should get therapy, should try to live my life. And I do. I go through the motions, I work, I eat, I sleep, I exist, but I don't celebrate. Not anymore. Because I know what can happen when you let your guard down, when you assume everyone around you is normal, is safe, is human. I know that sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just standing there with empty eyes and a knife in their pocket. Waiting for midnight. Waiting for midnight. I last saw Kit on New Year's Day 2022. We weren't close friends or anything, just classmates at Todd Beamer High School in Federal Way. But we had biology together, sat near each other, did group projects sometimes. He seemed fine that day, normal. We ran into each other at the grocery store. He was with his mom, I was with mine. We said hi, made small talk about going back to school, about how break was almost over, about how we weren't ready for finals. He laughed, said something about needing to study more. His mom smiled, said something about him always waiting until the last minute. The kind of thing parents say. The kind of normal conversation you have at a grocery store on a Sunday afternoon. That was it. That was the last time anyone I know saw him. School started back up on January 3rd. Kit wasn't there. I didn't think much of it. People miss the first day back all the time. Maybe he was sick. Maybe his family extended their break. Maybe he just didn't feel like coming. But then he wasn't there the second day, or the third, or the fourth. By the end of the week, people were asking questions. Teachers were asking if anyone had heard from him. The office was calling his house. His friends were texting him. Nothing. His phone went straight to voicemail. His social media hadn't been updated since before New Year's. His mom filed a missing person report on January 7th. The police came to school, talked to his friends, talked to his teachers, talked to anyone who knew him. They asked the usual questions. Was he depressed? Was he having problems at home? Did he mention running away? Did he have a girlfriend? A boyfriend? Any issues with anyone? Nobody had anything. Kit was just a regular kid. Quiet. Got decent grades. Played video games. Hung out with his friends. Nothing that would make you think he'd just disappear. Mom did interviews. Put up flyers. Created a Facebook page. Started a search. Organized volunteers to comb the parks and trails around Federal Way. The police searched too. Checked his last known locations. Pulled his phone records. Looked at surveillance footage from the grocery store. From gas stations. From anywhere he might have been. Nothing. It was like he just stopped existing after that conversation in the grocery store. The theory started almost immediately. Some people said he ran away. That maybe he was struggling with something and didn't tell anyone. That maybe he wanted to start over somewhere else. But that didn't make sense. He didn't take anything with him. His clothes were still in his room. His laptop, his gaming console, everything was still there. Other people said something happened to him. An accident. An abduction, something random and terrible. But there was no evidence of that either. No signs of struggle, no witnesses, no body. The case got attention for a while. Local news covered it. His mom did more interviews. Begged anyone who knew anything to come forward. The police said they were following leads. Said they were doing everything they could. But as weeks turned into months, the updates slowed down. The news stopped covering it. People stopped talking about it. Life went on, except for his mom and his friends and the people who knew him. I think about that conversation in the grocery store sometimes, about how normal it was, how unremarkable, about how if I'd known it was the last time I'd see him, I would have paid more attention. Would have said something more meaningful than just talking about school. But you don't know. You never know when the last time is going to be the last time. Biology class felt weird without him. His seat stayed empty for weeks. Then someone else eventually took it, like he'd never been there. Like he was just gone and we all had to move on. But his mom didn't move on. She kept searching, kept posting updates, kept asking questions. She hired a private investigator. She drove around Federal Way every weekend looking for any sign of him, any clue. She said she knew something was wrong, that a mother knows, that Kit wouldn't just leave, that something happened to him. The police said they were still investigating, but I could tell from the way they talked, from the way they worded their statements. They didn't have anything. They had no idea where he went or what happened to him. Some of his friends organized a vigil, set up candles and pictures at the school. People came, cried, shared memories. His mom spoke, thanked everyone, said she wasn't giving up, said she'd never give up. I went to the vigil, stood in the back, looked at his picture, a school photo from sophomore year. He was smiling, wearing a blue shirt, looking like any other teenager, looking like someone who had a future, who had plans, who had no idea he'd be on a missing person flyer a few years later. The months kept passing. Winter turned to spring, spring turned to summer, summer turned to fall, still nothing. His mom posted on the anniversary, January 1st. 1 year since the last confirmed sighting, she posted his picture. Wrote about how much she missed him, how she thinks about him every day, how she's still looking, still hoping. The police said the case was still open, still active, but I don't know what that means anymore. I don't know if they're actually doing anything, or if it's just something they say. I graduated in 2023. Kit should have graduated too, should have walked across that stage, should have had his mom crying happy tears instead of whatever she was doing that day, if she even acknowledged it, if she even could. There's a scholarship now, in his name, for students at Todd Beamer. His mom set it up. Something about keeping his memory alive, about helping other kids, about making something good come out of something terrible, but it doesn't change anything. He's still gone, still missing, still somewhere nobody knows. I think about all the possibilities sometimes, about where he could be, what could have happened. Maybe he's alive somewhere. Maybe he did run away and he's living under a different name. Maybe he had reasons we didn't know about. Maybe he'll come back someday. Maybe he had an accident. Maybe he fell somewhere. Maybe he's in a place nobody's looked. Maybe he's been there this whole time, waiting to be found. Maybe something worse happened. Something I don't want to think about. Something that means he's not coming back. That he never was. The not knowing is the worst part. At least that's what his mom says in her posts. The not knowing. The wondering. The hoping and the dread mixing together until you don't know which one is stronger. I moved away for college. I don't live in Federal Way anymore. But I still follow the Facebook page, Wide, still see the updates. Still see his mom posting every few months. Still see her asking if anyone knows anything, if anyone's seen anything. If anyone remembers anything, nobody ever does. The case is cold now, that's what they call it. Cold. Like it's just temperature. Like it's not a person, not a kid who had friends and family and a whole life ahead of him. I wonder if Kit knew. That day in the grocery store, if he knew something was about to happen. If he felt it, if there was any sign, but there wasn't. That's the thing, there was no sign, no warning, no goodbye. Just a normal conversation about school and studying and finals, and then nothing. I wonder if his mom replays that day, the last day she saw him, if she remembers what they talked about, what they did, if she wishes she'd said something different, done something different, kept him home. But you can't know. You can't protect someone from something when you don't know what the something is. Kit Mora disappeared sometime after New Year's Day 2022, somewhere in Federal Way, somewhere in the state of Washington. Somewhere nobody's been able to find. He's still listed as missing, still has an open case file, still has a mother who's looking for him, still has friends who wonder what happened. still has a seat in a biology class that somebody else is sitting in now. And I still think about that conversation in the grocery store, about how mundane it was, how forgettable. Except I haven't forgotten it. I don't think I ever will, because it was the last time, the last normal moment before Kit became a mystery, before he became a flyer on a telephone pole, before he became a cold case. I hope he's okay, wherever he is. I hope he's alive. I hope someday his mom gets answers, gets closure, gets something other than just questions and silence. But I don't think she will. I think Kit is gone. Really gone. And nobody knows why. Nobody knows how. Nobody knows where. He's just another person who disappeared. Another face on a missing poster. Another family waiting for news that might never come. Another teenager who went out one day and never came home. I don't know why I think about him so much. We weren't even close, but maybe that's why. Because it could have been anyone, could have been me, could have been any of us. We all went home after that grocery store trip. We all went to bed that night. We all woke up the next morning. But Kit didn't, not in the way that matters. Not in the way that brings you back. He's somewhere else now. Somewhere we can't reach, somewhere we can't find. And all we have is that last conversation, that last ordinary moment. That last time we saw him and didn't know it was the last time. I don't go to Federal Way much anymore, but when I do, I see the flyers sometimes. Faded now, weathered. Kit's face barely visible, the phone number to call if you have information. The word missing in bold letters at the top. They're everywhere and nowhere, just like Kit, missing. The cold started on Thursday morning, January 12, 1950. I remember because it was my sister's birthday. She turned 8 that day. My mother had planned a small party for the afternoon, just family, some cake, nothing fancy. But by noon, the temperature had dropped so fast you could feel it through the walls. My father came in from checking the animals and said something wasn't right, said the air felt different, heavy, like the sky was holding its breath. We lived on a farm 15 miles west of Ritzville. My father grew wheat, raised some cattle. We were used to cold winters, used to snow, but this felt different, even then, even before it really started. The party happened anyway. My mother had made the cake. My sister blew out her candles. We sang, we ate. We pretended everything was normal. But I kept looking out the window, kept watching the sky get darker, kept feeling that heaviness pressing down. By evening, it started snowing. Not heavy at first, just steady, constant. My father went out to bring the animals into the barn, make sure they had enough feed, make sure the doors were secure. He came back in and told my mother to fill every container we had with water, to bring in extra wood, to prepare. She asked him what for. He said he didn't know, just that we should be ready. Friday the 13th started with a blizzard. Not the kind you see coming, the kind that's just suddenly there, like someone flipped a switch. 1 minute, you could see across the yard. The next minute, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. The wind hit the house like something solid, like fists pounding on the walls. The windows rattled. The doors shook. Snow came in through cracks we didn't even know existed. My mother stuffed towels under the doors, hung blankets over the windows. Tried to keep the cold out. My father said we needed to stay inside no matter what. The barn was only 30 yards from the house, but he said we couldn't risk it. Said people got lost in weather like this, walked in circles until they froze. He'd seen it happen. The power went out around noon. The phone lines were already down. We were completely cut off, just our family. In our farmhouse, in the middle of nowhere, with a blizzard that showed no signs of stopping. My mother tried to keep things normal. She made lunch, she read to my sister, she acted like everything was fine. But I could see the worry in her eyes every time she looked at my father, every time the wind hit the house. Every time we heard something crack or break outside, the temperature kept dropping, even with the fire going, even with all of us bundled in every piece of clothing we owned. You could see your breath inside the house. Ice formed on the inside of the windows. The water in the kitchen bucket had a thin layer of ice on top by afternoon. My father kept the fire going. That was his job, making sure we had heat, making sure we didn't freeze. He'd go outside every few hours to get more wood from the pile by the back door. Each time he came back in, there was more ice in his beard, more frost on his coat. He looked older each time, more tired. Night came early. Or maybe it just felt that way because the sky had been dark all day. Either way, by 4 o'clock, it was black outside. Black and howling and angry. The wind sounded like something alive. Something trying to get in. We ate dinner by candlelight. Soup my mother had made from canned vegetables. Bread from earlier in the week. It should have felt cozy, like an adventure, the kind of story you tell later. But it didn't. And muss! It felt like waiting, like holding your breath, like something was coming and we couldn't stop it. My sister fell asleep on the couch near the fire. My mother covered her with every blanket we had. I tried to sleep too, but couldn't. Just lay there listening to the wind, listening to my father add wood to the fire, listening to the house groan and creak under the weight of the storm. Saturday morning, the blizzard was still going. If anything, it was worse. The snow had drifted so high against the house that the first-floor windows were completely covered. My father had to dig out the back door just to get to the woodpile. He said the barn was buried, said he couldn't even see the roof, said he hoped the animals were okay, but there was nothing we could do. The cold was worse too. So cold that the water froze in the bucket even next to the fire. So cold that we all huddled together under the blankets because separating meant freezing. So cold that my mother's voice shook when she tried to talk. When she tried to pretend everything was fine. My father started rationing the wood, said we had maybe 2 more days if we were careful. Maybe less if the temperature kept dropping. He didn't say what would happen after that. He didn't have to. Sunday, the blizzard finally stopped, but the cold didn't. My father opened the back door and the snow had drifted so high he couldn't get out. He had to dig a tunnel, had to shovel for an hour just to make it to where the woodpile should have been. When he finally came back in, his face was gray. He said he couldn't find the woodpile, said it was buried. Said he'd managed to get a few pieces, but that was it. He said we needed to make it last. My mother asked how long. He said, maybe through the night, maybe. That's when I saw her cry. Just for a second, just a few tears before she wiped them away and smiled at my sister. Before she said everything would be fine, that help would come, that someone would check on us. But no one came. No one could. The roads were impassable. The whole county was buried. The whole state. Everyone was trapped in their own houses, their own battles, their own desperate attempts to stay warm. Monday morning, my father said we needed to burn furniture. We started with the kitchen chairs, then the table, then an old dresser from upstairs. Anything that would burn, anything that would keep the fire going. Keep us alive. My sister asked if we were going to die. My mother said no, said help was coming, said the storm would end and everything would be fine. But her voice was different now, hollow, like she was reading words she didn't believe. Tuesday, someone knocked on our door. We thought we were hallucinating. Thought the cold had gotten to us, but it was real. A neighbor from 2 miles away, he'd walked, brought some food, some wood, said he was checking on everyone, said several families had already frozen, said a man and his 2 children had died trying to walk to town. My father asked about the children, where they were found. The neighbor said about a mile from their farmhouse, said they'd gotten disoriented in the blizzard, said the father had tried to carry them. Said all 3 were found frozen together in a snowbank. My mother made my sister leave the room, made her go upstairs. But I heard the whole thing. The neighbor said the cold was breaking records, said it was the worst anyone had seen, said the whole state was trapped, said people were dying. Not just from the cold, but from trying to escape it, from making bad decisions, from thinking they could make it just a little farther. He stayed for an hour, helped my father bring in the wood he'd brought, helped break apart an old shed in our yard for more fuel. Then he left, said he had other families to check on. other people who might need help. We never saw him again. I don't know if he made it home. I don't know if he froze somewhere between our farm and the next one. I don't know if his family ever found him. The cold lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of burning everything we could, of sleeping in one room, of wearing every piece of clothing we owned, of wondering if we'd make it. Other families didn't. We found that out later, when the roads finally cleared, when people could finally move around, when they started counting the dead. 15 people in our county alone, more across the state. Some froze in their homes when they ran out of fuel. Some froze in their cars trying to drive somewhere. Death that is hours of their death. Some froze just trying to get from their house to their barn. The father and his 2 children haunted me. Still haunt me. The idea that they were so close to their house, just a mile. But in that blizzard, a mile might as well have been 100. They couldn't see. Couldn't tell which direction they were going. Couldn't feel their feet or their hands or their faces. I imagined them walking, the father carrying one child, holding the hand of the other, telling them it would be okay, that they were almost there, that they just had to keep going. I imagine him realizing they were lost, that he'd made a mistake, that he couldn't find his way back and couldn't find his way forward, that they were just going to die out there in the snow. I imagine him trying to keep his children warm, hugging them, covering them with his body, trying to shield them from the wind, from the cold. Knowing it wasn't enough, knowing they were dying, knowing he'd killed them by leaving the house. They found them 4 hours after the father had left work. 4 hours. That's how long it took. The farmhouse was visible from where they died. Once the snow cleared, once you could see again, the house was right there. They'd been walking in circles. My sister doesn't remember much from that winter. She was too young. She remembers being cold, remembers the fire, remembers my mother reading to her, but she doesn't remember the fear, the desperation, the certainty that we might not survive. I remember all of it. I remember my father's face when he couldn't find the woodpile, when he realized we might not have enough fuel, when he started calculating how long we had. I remember my mother's forced cheerfulness, her shaking voice, her tears when she thought no one was looking. I remember the neighbor who came with food and wood, who might have died doing it, who might have frozen on his way to check on the next family. I remember the sound of the wind, the way it never stopped, the way it felt like something trying to get in, trying to kill us. I remember the cold, the way it crept into everything, the way it made your lungs hurt, the way it made you feel like you were dying even when you weren't. We survived. My family made it. We were lucky. We had enough fuel, enough food, enough shelter. We made the right choices. We stayed inside. We stayed together. We waited it out. But I think about the families who didn't, the ones who ran out of wood, the ones who tried to walk somewhere for help, the ones who made one bad decision and paid for it with their lives. I think about those 2 children, about how they must have been scared, about how they trusted their father to keep them safe, about how he tried, about how it wasn't enough. I think about how close we came, how if my father had gone to get the children from school that day, how if we'd been in town instead of on the farm, how if we'd made any number of different choices, we might have been one of the families they found later, frozen, dead. Another statistic from the winter of 1950, the blizzard that came on Friday the 13th, the worst winter storm Washington state had seen, the one that killed 15 people in our county alone, the one that started on my sister's 8th birthday and lasted 3 weeks. I'm 73 now. My sister is 71. My parents are long gone. The farm was sold decades ago. Ritzville has changed. Everything has changed. But I still remember that winter, still remember the cold, still remember the fear, still remember the father and his 2 children frozen a mile from their house. Still remember thinking that could have been us. Still remember wondering why it wasn't. Why it wasn't. I saw Misty at the fair on September 17, 1992. She was standing near the cotton candy booth with her friends, laughing about something. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She was wearing a purple shirt, jeans, white sneakers. I remember because purple was her favorite color. She wore it all the time, said it made her feel happy, said it reminded her of flowers. We went to the same school, Fort Vancouver High School in Vancouver, Washington. Different grades though. She was a freshman. 14. I was a junior. 16. We weren't friends exactly. Just knew each other, said hi in the hallways, that kind of thing. The fair was one of those traveling ones. Set up in a parking lot off 4th Plain Boulevard. Not fancy, just some rides, some games, some food stands. The kind of thing small towns get. The kind of thing teenagers go to because there's nothing else to do. I was there with my boyfriend, walking around, eating terrible food, wasting money on games that were obviously rigged, normal stuff. We saw Misty and her friends in line for the zipper, that spinning cage ride that makes you feel like you're going to die. They were talking to some guys. Guys I didn't recognize, older, maybe 18 or 19. My boyfriend said something about them looking sketchy. I didn't think much of it. Guys at fairs always look sketchy. That's part of the appeal when you're 14. Talking to older guys, feeling grown up, feeling noticed. We left around 9. The fair was still going, still crowded, still loud with screaming from the rides and music from the speakers. Misty was still there, still with her friends, still with those guys. That was the last confirmed sighting of her, 9 p.m., September 17th, 1992, at the Clark County Fair. She never came home that night. Her mom called the police the next morning, said Misty hadn't come home, said she was supposed to be back by 11, said she always called if she was going to be late, said something was wrong. The police didn't take it seriously at first. They said she was probably just out with friends, said teenagers do that, said she'd come home when she was ready. They told her mom to wait 24 hours before filing an official report. Her mom said she knew something was wrong, that Misty wouldn't just disappear, that she was a good kid, that she wouldn't make her worry like this. The police said they'd keep an eye out. That was it. Keep an eye out. 24 hours passed. Misty didn't come home. Her mom filed the report. The police started investigating, started asking questions, started trying to piece together her last movements. They talked to her friends, the girls she'd been with at the fair. They said Misty had been with them all evening, that they'd ridden rides, played games, eaten funnel cake. That around 8:30, Misty had met up with those guys, the older ones, that she'd gone off with them for a bit. Her friends said they'd tried to get her to stay with them, said those guys gave them bad vibes. But Misty said she was fine, said she'd be right back, said they were just going to walk around. That was the last time her friends saw her. The police tried to find the guys, asked for descriptions, asked if anyone got names. The girls said no, just that they were older, white, maybe late teens. One had dark hair, one had lighter hair. One wore a Metallica shirt. That was all they could remember. The police interviewed everyone who'd been working at the fair, the ride operators, the game booth attendants, the food vendors, asked if anyone had seen her, if anyone had noticed anything unusual. Some people remembered seeing her, said she seemed happy, said she was laughing, said she was with some guys, but nobody could give more details. Nobody got names. Nobody thought anything was wrong. The police searched the fairgrounds after it had moved on, looked for any sign of her, any clue. They found nothing. Just trash. Just the usual debris left behind when a traveling fair packs up and leaves. Days turned into weeks. The police put up flyers, asked the media for help, put Misty's face on the news, her school photo, smiling, purple shirt, braces, looking like any other 14-year-old girl. Her mom did interviews, begged anyone who knew anything to come forward, said she just wanted her daughter back, said she didn't care about anything else, just wanted Misty home. Tips came in, people who thought they'd seen her, people who thought they knew something. The police followed up on every single one, drove all over Clark County, all over Washington, even into Oregon. Portland was just across the river. Maybe she'd gone there. Maybe someone had taken her there. Every tip led nowhere. Weeks turned into months. The case stayed active, but the leads dried up. The media stopped covering it. The public moved on, but her mom didn't. She kept searching, kept putting up flyers, kept calling the police, kept asking if there was anything new. There never was. I thought about that night at the fair a lot, about seeing Misty, about those guys she was with, about whether I should have said something, done something, warned her somehow. But what would I have said? Stay away from those guys. They look dangerous. Based on what? A feeling, a vibe, a vibe. She would have thought I was being paranoid, overprotective, jealous even, and maybe they weren't dangerous. Maybe they were just regular guys. Maybe Misty left with them willingly. Maybe she went somewhere else after. Maybe something completely unrelated happened. But I don't think so. My boyfriend and I broke up that winter. We tried to stay together, but everything felt different after. Every time we went somewhere, every time we were in a crowd, I'd find myself looking for her, looking for that purple shirt, looking for her face. I graduated in 1994. Misty should have graduated in 1996, should have walked across that stage, should have had her mom crying in the audience, should have had plans for college, for life, for everything. Instead, she got a memorial in the yearbook, a full page, her school photo, dates underneath. Born 1978, disappeared 1992. Like that was her whole story. 14 years of life summed up in 2 dates. The case went cold. That's what they call it when they run out of leads. When they've done everything they can and there's nowhere else to go. Cold, like temperature. Like it's something that just happens. Like it's nobody's fault. Her mom never gave up though. She kept the missing person flyers up for years, kept them taped to telephone poles, kept them in store windows, kept them anywhere someone might see them, might remember something. She moved away eventually, sometime in the late 90s. I heard she couldn't stay in Vancouver anymore, couldn't drive past the fairgrounds, couldn't see the places Misty used to go, couldn't live in the house where she was waiting for Misty to come home. I moved away too, went to college in Seattle, started a new life. New friends, new places. But I never forgot about Misty. Never stopped thinking about her. Never stopped wondering what happened that night. The theories were endless. Everyone had one. Some people said she ran away, that she wanted to start over. That 14-year-olds do that sometimes. But that didn't make sense. She didn't take anything with her. Her clothes were still in her room. Her savings account was never touched. Her friends said she was happy. Said she had plans for the weekend, for the school year, for homecoming. Other people said she was abducted. That those guys at the fair took her. That they did something to her. That she's been dead since that night. But the police could never find the guys, could never identify them. The fair was full of transients, travelers. People who moved from town to town. People who were there one day and gone the next. They could have been anyone. Could have been from anywhere, could have taken Misty anywhere. Some people had darker theories about trafficking, about being sold, about being taken out of state, out of the country, about being alive but trapped. But those theories were almost worse than thinking she was dead, because at least if she was dead, it was over. She wasn't suffering anymore. I tried to move on, I really did. I got married, had kids, built a life. But every September I'd think about her, about that night at the fair, about seeing her in that purple shirt, about her laughing with her friends, about how normal everything seemed, how safe, how ordinary. In 2009, someone reported a possible sighting, a woman in her 30s who looked like an age-progressed photo of Misty, living in California, going by a different name. The police investigated, did DNA testing. It wasn't her. In 2012, another tip. A body found in rural Oregon? Female. Been there for years. Could be Misty? More DNA testing. Not her. Every few years there'd be something. Some hope. Some possibility. And every time it led nowhere. Every time it was someone else's tragedy. Someone else's missing daughter. Someone else's unsolved case. The fair still comes to Vancouver. Different location now, different rides, different vendors, but the same energy, the same crowds, The same teenagers walking around thinking they're invincible, thinking nothing bad will happen to them. I drove past it once, a few years ago, saw the lights, heard the music, smelled the fried food, and I felt sick. Because Misty probably felt that way too. That night, she probably felt excited, free, grown up. She probably thought she was just having fun, just talking to some guys, just living her life. She probably never saw it coming. Whatever it was, whatever happened to her, the case is still open, still technically active, but I don't think anyone's working on it anymore. Not really. Too much time has passed. Too many dead ends. Too little evidence. Misty Copsey disappeared on September 17, 1992 from the Clark County Fair in Vancouver, Washington. She was 14 years old. She was wearing a purple shirt and jeans and white sneakers. She was with older guys. She was laughing. She was alive. And then she wasn't. Or she was, but somewhere else. Somewhere no one could find her. Somewhere she couldn't get home from. Her mom died in 2018. Heart attack. But I think it was really a broken heart. I think she died of not knowing, of spending 26 years wondering, of going to bed every night not knowing if her daughter was alive or dead, safe or suffering, coming home or never coming home. She died without answers, without closure, without ever knowing what happened to Misty that night at the fair. I have a daughter now. She's 15, close to the age Misty was. And I watch her like a hawk. I know where she is, who she's with, when she'll be home. I don't let her go to fairs alone. Don't let her talk to older guys. Don't let her out of my sight more than I have to. She thinks I'm paranoid, overprotective. She doesn't understand. She thinks bad things only happen to other people, in other places, not here, not to her. That's what Misty probably thought too. I think about her mom sometimes. About how she felt that morning when Misty didn't come home. About the moment she knew, really knew, that something was wrong. That this wasn't just teenage rebellion, that her daughter was gone. I think about the phone call to the police, about being told to wait, about knowing in her gut that waiting was wrong, that every minute mattered, that Misty needed help and no one was helping. I think about the years after, about keeping the hope alive, about believing Misty was out there somewhere, about dying without ever knowing the truth. I think about Misty, about what her life could have been, should have been, about the birthdays she never had, the experiences she never got, the person she never became. I think about that purple shirt, about her laughing, about her walking away with those guys, about how easy it was, how fast, how permanent. 1 minute she was there, the next minute she was gone. And 32 years later, she's still gone, still missing, still 14 years old in everyone's memory. Still in that purple shirt, still at that fair, still walking away, still never coming home. I wasn't supposed to be working that Saturday. March 22nd, 2014, it was my day off. I had plans, grocery shopping, cleaning the house, normal weekend stuff, but Jenkins called in sick and someone needed to cover the morning shift at the coffee stand in Darrington. So I went in, drove the 45 minutes from my apartment in Arlington, got there at 6 a.m., started brewing coffee, started setting up the pastries, started the same routine I'd done hundreds of times. The weather was bad that morning. Rain, not unusual for March in Washington. It had been raining for days, weeks really. The ground was saturated, the rivers were high. But that wasn't unusual either. This was the Pacific Northwest. Rain was just part of life. The first customers came in around 6:30, loggers heading to work sites, construction workers, people who needed coffee before they started their day. I knew most of them by name, small town. Same people every morning, same orders. Around 10 a.m., the rain got heavier. I remember because I had to turn the windshield wipers on the drive-through window to keep it clear. The sound of it hitting the roof was loud, constant, like static. A few customers mentioned the flooding, said some of the back roads were getting bad, said the Stillaguamish River was running high, but nobody seemed worried. Not really. This was normal. This was spring. At 10:37 a.m., I heard it. At first, I thought it was thunder. A low rumble that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, but it didn't stop. It got louder, closer. The building started shaking. Coffee cups rattled on the counter. The lights flickered. Then it stopped. Just went quiet. The rain kept falling, but that sound was gone. I looked out the window. Couldn't see anything unusual. Just rain. Just the parking lot. Just the highway. I thought maybe it was an earthquake. We got those sometimes. Small ones, usually. Nothing to worry about. A customer came through the drive-thru. Asked if I'd felt that. I said yes. He said it felt like the whole mountain moved. We laughed about it. He took his coffee and drove away. That was at 10:40. By 11, my phone started buzzing. Text messages, calls. My mom asking if I was okay. My roommate asking where I was. My manager asking if I'd heard anything. Heard anything about what? I turned on the radio. The news was just starting to come through. Reports of a massive mudslide near Oso, near State Route 530, between Darrington and Arlington, just a few miles from where I was standing. They said it was bad. They said multiple homes were hit. They said people were trapped. They said emergency services were responding. Oso was tiny, maybe 200 people. A cluster of houses along the North Fork of the Stillaguamish River, rural, quiet. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where people moved to get away from the city, to raise their families, to be close to nature. The reports kept coming, more details, worse details. They said a square mile of hillside had collapsed. They said it buried everything in its path. They said there were casualties. They didn't know how many. The coffee stand got quiet. Customers stopped coming. The ones who did only wanted to talk about the mudslide, about whether anyone we knew lived out there, about how bad it could be. I tried to keep working, keep making coffee, keep acting normal, but my hands were shaking because I knew that route. I drove it all the time. I knew those houses. I'd seen them from the highway, small homes nestled in the trees, kids playing in yards, normal life. And now they were saying all of it was gone, buried under mud and debris, under what used to be a mountain. By noon, they were calling it a disaster. The governor was mobilizing resources. Search and rescue teams were being deployed. The highway was closed, completely shut down. Nobody could get through. The only way between Darrington and Arlington now was to drive 2 hours around through concrete. My manager called, told me to close up, told me to go home, said nobody was coming anyway, said everyone was either helping with the rescue or staying home watching the news. I locked up, got in my car, started driving toward Arlington, but I couldn't get through. The highway was blocked, orange cones, flashing lights, police cars, fire trucks, ambulances, all heading the other direction. Toward Oso, I had to turn around, drive the long way, through concrete, through Marble Mount, 2.5 hours instead of 45 minutes. The whole time listening to the radio, to the updates, to the numbers getting worse. They were saying at least 8 people were dead. Then 14, then 18. The numbers kept climbing. They said there were people still missing, still buried, still alive maybe. They said crews were digging, searching, working as fast as they could, but the mud was deep, 15 feet in some places, 20, 30, and it wasn't just mud, it was trees, cars, pieces of houses, propane tanks, power lines, everything mixed together into a dense, unstable mass that kept shifting, kept sliding, kept threatening to bury the rescuers too. I got home around 3 p.m., turned on the TV. The news was showing aerial footage, helicopter shots of the slide area. And it was worse than I'd imagined. So much worse. The whole hillside was gone. Just gone. Where there used to be trees and earth, there was now a massive scar, gray and brown and raw. And below it, where the houses used to be, was nothing. No structures, no roads. No sign that anyone had ever lived there. Just mud. Acres and acres of mud. They were calling it the Oso Mudslide, the Steelhead Haven Mudslide, the SR 530 Mudslide. Different names for the same disaster, for the same tragedy, for the same moment when a mountain collapsed and buried a community. The death toll kept rising. 20, 25, 30. They said there were still people unaccounted for, still families they couldn't reach, still homes they hadn't searched because they were buried too deep. By Sunday, the confirmed dead was at 24. By Monday, it was 30. By Tuesday, it was 35. Each number was a person, a name, a family, a story. Each number was someone who woke up that Saturday morning thinking it was just another day. The news showed pictures. The victims, young and old, families, couples, kids, a 4-month-old baby, a grandmother, construction workers who'd been building a new house, people who'd lived there for decades, and people who'd just moved in. I recognized some of the names. People I'd seen around Darrington, people who'd come through the coffee stand, people who'd ordered medium lattes and blueberry muffins and said thank you and drove away. People who were gone now, buried under 30 feet of mud and debris, dead before they even knew what was happening. The rescue turned into a recovery. By the end of the first week, they weren't looking for survivors anymore. They were looking for bodies, digging through the mud carefully, methodically, trying to bring people home, trying to give families something to bury. It took weeks. Some bodies weren't found for a month. Some were never found, listed as missing, presumed dead, but no remains, no closure, just gone, swallowed by the mountain. I drove past the site a few months later. They'd cleared the highway by then, reopened it, put up barriers, made it safe. But you could still see the devastation, still see where the hillside used to be, still see the empty space where homes used to stand. There was a memorial, crosses along the road, 43 of them, one for each victim. Some had names, some had pictures. Some had flowers and stuffed animals and candles. All of them were reminders of what happened, of who was lost, of how fast everything can change. The investigation took months. They wanted to know why that hillside, why that day, why it was so catastrophic. They found out the hill had been unstable for decades, that there had been slides before, smaller ones, that the state knew it was dangerous but kept the highway open, kept letting people build there, kept ignoring the warnings. They found out that the logging had made it worse, that clear-cutting the trees had destabilized the slope, that years of rain had saturated the earth, that it was only a matter of time before something gave way. And on March 22, 2014, at 10:37 a.m., it did. A square mile of hillside, millions of cubic yards of earth and debris, moving at 40 miles per hour, burying everything in its path in less than 2 minutes. No warning, no chance to run, no survivors in the direct path, 43 people dead, 49 structures destroyed, an entire community erased in less time than it takes to brew a pot of coffee. I quit the coffee stand a few months later. Couldn't do it anymore, couldn't drive that route, couldn't see the memorial, couldn't serve coffee to people and pretend everything was normal when I knew it wasn't, when I knew how close I'd been, how easily it could have been me. If I'd been driving to work an hour later, if I'd taken the route through Oso instead of through concrete, if I'd decided to skip my shift, to stay home, to be anywhere else, I would have been there when it happened, would have been on that road, would have been in the path, would have been one of the 43 crosses on the side of the highway. I think about that sometimes, about how random it is, how arbitrary, how there's no reason I survived and they didn't. No grand plan, no divine intervention, just timing, just luck. Just the fact that I happened to be in one place instead of another when the mountain came down. I think about the people who lived there, who'd bought those houses, who'd chosen to live in that beautiful, quiet place by the river, who'd thought they were safe, who'd been told they were safe, who'd trusted that someone was paying attention, that someone would warn them if there was danger, Nobody warned them. Nobody could. The slide happened so fast. The geology so unpredictable. The rain so relentless. It was a perfect storm of conditions that nobody saw coming. Or that people saw coming but didn't think would happen. Not there, not then, not to them. One of the victims was a man I'd served coffee to that morning. 3 hours before the slide, he'd ordered a large dark roast. Black. No sugar. He'd said thank you. He'd driven away toward Oso, toward home, toward his family, toward his death. I didn't know it at the time. Didn't make the connection until I saw his picture on the news. Saw his name in the list of victims. Realized he'd been one of the last people I'd talked to that morning. One of the last normal interactions he'd had. Coffee at a drive-thru. Small talk about the weather. Thank you. Have a nice day. He didn't have a nice day. He had 2 more hours of life, and then he had a mountain fall on top of him. And I served him coffee, smiled, told him to drive safe. The community of Oso never recovered. Not really. Some people rebuilt, moved back, tried to reclaim what they'd lost, but most people left. Couldn't stay. Couldn't live in the shadow of that mountain. Couldn't drive past where their neighbors used to live. Couldn't forget what happened. The memorial is still there. The 43 crosses, they maintain it, keep it clean, add flowers on anniversaries, on birthdays, on holidays. Families come to visit, to remember, to grieve. I've driven past it a few times since. Not often, but sometimes. And every time I do, I slow down. I look at the crosses. I read the names. I remember where I was, what I was doing, how close I came, and I think about how the mountain is still there. Still unstable, still saturated with rain every winter, still capable of sliding again. And people still drive past it, still live near it, still trust that it won't happen again. But it could. Geologists say it will, not today, not tomorrow, but someday, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 50, maybe in 100, but that hillside will slide again. And when it does, there will be more crosses, more names, more families destroyed, because we live on unstable ground here. On mountains that move, on earth that shifts, on slopes that have been clear-cut and oversaturated and stressed beyond their limits. We live in a place where nature can reclaim everything in minutes, where safety is an illusion, where the ground beneath your feet can disappear without warning. March 22, 2014, 10:37 a.m. The Oso mudslide, the deadliest landslide in United States history. 43 people killed. An entire community buried. A mountain that swallowed a town, and I was making coffee 5 miles away. Listening to the rain, hearing the rumble. Not knowing, not understanding, not realizing that everything had just changed. That people I knew were dying, that families were being destroyed, that the world was ending for 43 people while I was steaming milk and counting change. I still work in coffee. Different place now, farther from the mountains, farther from the rivers, farther from anything that could slide or flood or collapse. But I still think about it. Every time it rains hard, every time the ground shakes, every time I hear that low rumble that sounds like thunder but isn't, I think about Oso, about the mountain, about the people who didn't make it out, about how fast it happened, about how there was nothing anyone could do, about how I was supposed to have the day off, about how I almost wasn't there, about how close I came to being somewhere else, somewhere worse, somewhere that doesn't exist anymore. I think about the 43 crosses, about the names, about the families, about the empty spaces where homes used to be, about the silence where life used to be. And I wonder if the mountain remembers, if it knows what it did, if it feels anything at all, or if it's just earth and rock and water, just geology, just forces beyond our control, just nature doing what nature does, taking back what was never really ours,